thing with Taylor Swift is that the concerts are like a very community-based thing. Like, for example, the bracelet thingies is one of the things that everyone was gonna make like as many bracelets as you can, and then you exchange them with other people. And then since like it's a tour about the different eras, everyone is like dressed as like a specific album from hers.
Is that why it's called the Eras tour?
Yeah, because she's like basically making like her whole history in music, and like every album is kind of like an era. Like Fearless was her first album, that's like Fearless era, then Reputation, then whatever.
So tonight you're going to Taylor Swift, but and welcome to us, to Stand Out and the podcast. Super nice to have you here. I bumped into you at the Gust yesterday.
Yeah.
And there was so much other, I guess, Swifties, or whatever you call yourself.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people coming in with trolleys and stuff.
Yeah.
So please introduce yourself.
Okay.
Because it's just nice to have in the beginning.
Yeah, so I'm Eira, I'm from Barcelona, I'm 31 years old, and I started in the coffee industry. Well, I started drinking good coffee 7 years ago, and I started working in the industry about like 2 years ago, more or less, because I fell in love with specialty coffee when I found it, and since I started learning about it, I just wanted to learn more and more, and now I somehow turned that hobby into my work.
Cool. And so what's your work?
So I started by studying journalism because I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. So I thought like, well, journalism is something where like if you're a curious person, you can investigate about anything. And once I finished that, I was like, I don't really like this job or like working at newspapers and things like that. So I started just investigating about different things, and that somehow led me to social media, which is what I basically like is my main work, where I started doing marketing and managing like social media like profiles for agencies and companies, because it was something that gave me money and that I could do while I was traveling and doing other stuff and investing my time into my hobbies, which is basically what I wanted to do while I was like looking for what I wanted to actually do, because I spent a lot of time of like tried to do yoga teacher training, I tried to do meditation, I tried to do a lot of different things because I was like, I need to find my passion, but I don't know what that is. And then at some point I stumbled into coffee, and I mixed kind of like my skills in communication with the coffee world, because since in Spain specialty coffee is not something that a lot of people know about, or we have a really bad culture of bad burnt coffee. I was like,
Everyone
I want to but I feel like in the Nordic countries it's like more like accepted that you drink better coffee, or that you spend a bit more money on coffee. In Spain it's like a very hard thing to do, but it's something that I want to change.
Yeah, it's cool. So I've seen your videos, but sadly I'm ashamed I don't really understand what you're saying.
You don't speak Spanish.
I don't speak Spanish. So with a super nice big smile, you are like traveling around recommending places, or what's the main journey of your video philosophy, or what you do online?
At the beginning, I did a bit more of like niche content, because everyone was like, no, if you start social media, you have to be a niche and you cannot do anything outside of that niche, which is, I think, very, very wrong. But I started doing more like wellness, lifestyle kind of content. But then at some point I was like, well, I want to introduce different parts of my personality, and coffee for me is like a big part of my personality, even though that sounds a bit weird, but yeah. And so I started with like recommending coffee shops at the beginning, like going to different places so that people would kind of like make it easier for them, so that they could find coffee places or want to give specialty coffee a try. And that led for people to ask me like, oh, what's specialty coffee, or how do you brew this at home, or how do you do this? So for me, at the end, it's become more of like documenting what I do. For example, if I'm trying to like buy a new machine for my house, I will tell people like, oh, this is what I'm taking into consideration. Or if I'm traveling here, for example, I've been doing like coffee like routes around here, or I'm going to the Taylor Swift concert, so I'm also doing that, even though it's kind of like not my main topic. But I want to use lifestyle so that people follow me for other reasons, to bring them into coffee, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And I think you are doing something unique. And so I got a question from my son's, so a parent to my son, and they were like, or she was like, oh, I've been following you on Instagram, and it would be super nice to come hang out with you to learn more. And then I realized, or it's hard to like just learn social media, but the big thing with social media, I think, is that if you don't have a story to tell, then it's almost impossible. Like you can buy time from you or from me or anyone who can like maybe set it up, but then if you don't have the true story to tell, then it's like so hard to break through. So I think that's like the main thing. And just to follow you when you're, as you said, like, oh, I'm looking into buying a new coffee machine. That's really what you want to do.
Yeah.
And just to give everyone what you're doing, I think must be, I would guess, the main reason for your success.
Yeah.
And we talked a little about your channels, and I'm an Instagram guy, or our company is. We tried TikTok, but we didn't. It was just maybe too much for me to handle. But tell me, you're on both, but are you also on other channels?
Yeah. So I'm TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube.
Yeah.
Thing is, like, I started with Instagram mainly like 7 years ago, which is more or less when I started with the whole social media thing. But I never really felt that connected to Instagram, because I always felt like Instagram was more of like a pretending platform where people are like, oh, let me show you my amazing vacation in the Maldives, or let me show you this. And like, if you didn't have like something really cool to show, it was like, I'm not gonna really post anything because it's not like super aesthetic and super nice. With YouTube, I always felt like, well, you can just sit there and like tell a story and people are gonna listen, kind of like a podcast thing, because that's how I use YouTube at least. But with TikTok, to me, it felt like a more natural platform where people want to see kind of like not the bad side of people, but like the more natural
side,
the natural side, the thing that we relate with the most. And I think that's the reason why I always, like, the moment I started with TikTok, like, was like 4 years ago in 2020, I just immediately felt like this is my platform, because I feel way more safe to express myself and to tell whatever I want, because I've always been more of a natural person and I don't want to pretend like I'm something I'm not, or I don't know. And the minute I started with like more natural stories that I maybe told on Instagram, they went super well on TikTok, even though they didn't go as well on Instagram. But I feel like now it's changing a little bit, where like Instagram is kind of turning a little bit into TikTok, because people were missing that natural side. Yeah. People got tired of like just seeing other people's lives and being jealous of like, oh, I cannot have this life, you know?
True. Yeah, I'm a little bit scared of it. And I also think it's a matter of time. But as you said, you did something and it went well on another platform. And we are doing what I think is kind of thought through stuff. And we are telling something that means a lot for us. Yeah. So when I have the reel, in my case, done, I can also upload it as a YouTube short. Yeah. But since we are very new there, and I think our followers are not active yet around there, it's hard. Like sometimes it just gets a lot of views, and sometimes it can get like 2 views. It's so like, oh, what's happening? And when you have your base and your followers on one platform, it's so much more rewarding. It is. To send something out there and you see like 1,000 or whatever views come in and likes and comments, and you can really connect to people. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna do the TikTok thing again. The
thing about TikTok that I think a lot of people don't see is that on Instagram, you usually, like, if you post a video, people, like, your followers will already see it, and so you will get instant engagement from them. But on TikTok, it's like, if you, for example, like, follow James Hoffman and Lance Hendricks and a few other, like, coffee lovers, if you put out a video and you have, like, 0 followers as your brand, but you're doing a similar topic than these people are already following, the algorithm wants people to be addicted to the app, which is, like, it's a bad thing, but it's a good thing for companies or, like, for people, because that means that if you're doing a specialty coffee content, it will be shown to those people, and it will be shown to people who already are interested in that topic. So that will give you more engagement and more views, even if you don't have like that many followers, for example.
But it must be like the amount of views that you get on TikTok is very high, I think. But it also must be connected to the shortness of the videos. Like you go through videos, right?
That's what it started being, because at the beginning TikTok was like 15-second long videos, but now like they're trying to do like, they're trying to work against YouTube. So now they have videos up to 10 minutes. And I've filmed videos for like 8 minutes on TikTok and they do really well. So it's like people, I think, wanted like short form content in the time where it started, because it was like COVID times and everyone was just like, I'm bored in my house and I just want to like go through things and just like, I don't know, avoid the state of the world and everything. But TikTok has become something where like people want to spend time and also learn a bit more. So I think like it's turning more of kind of like a YouTube, but for younger people, if that makes sense.
So then I'm on YouTube.
You
No.
should just use the content for both, because I feel like
I
if you've
think so
already
too.
filmed
Yeah,
a reel,
yeah.
you
We
put some
did-
time in that, so you can just like reuse that into
Yeah.
like YouTube
We did-
shorts or
Yes,
something like
yeah.
that.
So we did like everything. When we did a quick tour here, we
Mhm.
talked about the luring.
Yeah.
You had some sparkles in your eyes.
Mm. Never seen a luring before.
No, and but then you mentioned Gießen.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you close to a Gießen?
So because I roast my own coffee, and I started with my own coffee brand a month ago. So it's like very, I mean, I started working on this for the last 2 years, but since the moment like I started like selling the coffee and everything, it's been a month, which I'm very excited about. Because I, like the moment I got into specialty coffee, I was in love with this world, and I was like, I just want to learn more. And I just started doing like SCA certified courses, but just for me. Yet like I didn't really want to like, or didn't think I was gonna end up roasting coffee or doing anything. But I did my sensory training at the beginning because cupping coffee is something that I really liked.
Yeah.
And then at the school that I did that, people were like, oh, if you do like these 4 courses, you get like a 30% off. So I was like, oh, and it was like green coffee, roasting.
Was it with Serrano from Barcelona?
In Malaterra.
Okay. Oh, nice.
So I did the green coffee, sensory, and then roasting foundation and roasting intermediate all in 1 week, because I was just like so obsessed with everything that I was just, every time I like something, is like I go full like 200% obsession with that.
That's how we work.
I feel like that's what I've seen in this world. Like people are like, they get into this and they just do everything.
Yeah.
And I did that 2 years ago as a hobby. And then I started talking, because at that time I was already doing like reviewing coffee roasters, so I could recommend them to my followers, because that was a way of people are like, oh, I want to buy from this roaster, but I don't know if I'm going to like it or if it's good or not. So I would try the coffees and say like, I think this of this roaster, and that would help people decide if they wanted to buy or not. But then everyone was like, you should have your own coffee brand, because like even though you recommend this roaster and I trust you, I would love it even more if it was your coffee, because I trust you more. So I thought like, that's actually not a bad idea.
Yeah.
And I've been following Emma Chamberlain, if you know the YouTuber. She doesn't do specialty coffee, but she's become really big in like with their coffee brand. I was like, I could do something like that. I could try and see how it goes. So then I started talking to different people, and then I found this one roaster that was willing to work with me. So yeah.
You know, my first roaster was a Gießen.
Really?
Yes, a 1 kilo.
Oh.
Super cute.
1 kilo. I think I've never seen one that small.
No, I don't know if they are still in production actually. And our gas was a big issue and turned out never to actually work. So we exchanged it to an electric one, which was cool. It really worked. So I did my first 1,000 batches on that one. There was back in Drop Coffee.
Okay.
That I was co-founding 2009.
Okay, I went there 2 days ago.
Oh, nice. Yeah. It's still around. And then we eventually got into to bigger ones. And I think a problem now is when people buy roasters, they buy too big roasters. So there's a lot of roasters now standing still, like over the time span of the week. And I think we are growing, but with a 7 kilo, we could really like fill the time. And I think eventually in maybe a year or so, I think we need to upgrade, which is totally super nice.
But I feel like that's when it makes sense for you to kind of roast with something small, and then when at some point you're like, okay, I need something bigger, then to make the investment, because I feel like people start the other way around of like buying a very big machine when they don't do that. And that's something that I really like about the guy that I'm roasting with, which is, I mean, Alex knows him. It's Miguel Lamora from Atman's Coffee. And he started with like the bullet, the 1 kilo one, and last year he roasted like I don't know how many kilos in that machine. So he's putting like a lot of work into
and that's
that.
the problem with like the consistency, and if you're gonna do that amount of batches, it's almost like getting into your head. I remember like the weeks before we got the luring, and Alex was like chained to the 3 kilo Diedrich, and I was like, is it gonna be nice with a new roaster? And he says, if it doesn't arrive in 2 weeks, I'm out. This is just getting too much when you have like 35 batches of the same thing. And so
you spend all day working. You could like spend less hours if you had a bigger machine.
And also like being a roaster from the outside, it could be like seem quite repetitive, but when you're changing coffees and changing profiles and trying new stuff, it's super fun. But if you do every batch the same over the time span of days, it's gonna be like a mental thing. So what's the name of your brand?
Eida's Coffee,
Eida's
just like my name,
Yeah.
because I thought about like a lot of different like conceptual names, but everything that I wanted was already taken. And then I was like, well, people want to buy the coffee for me, so
Yeah.
it makes sense, and I
Yeah.
have a nice name. So
Yeah. And are you like online, or do you have like a physical store yet?
So
or
for the moment,
what's the-
I am fully online
Yeah.
because I was thinking that a lot of other, like what I bring different from other roasters is that I do a lot of content online. People know me from online, so people want, and I also want to give people the experience and the tools to make good coffee at home, because a lot of people are like, well, if I want to have good coffee, I have to go to a coffee shop because I have no idea how to do this at home, or this is too expensive or whatever. So I want to make it cheap and accessible to people. But I'm also thinking of maybe having a few like coffee shops in the city where I can have my coffee from time to time at least.
We are only based online.
Okay. Well, now you're a guest too.
Yes, or we have, but it's not our shop. And you will eventually also have coffee bars running your coffee.
Yeah.
So in Stockholm now it's with Gas, Stora Bageriet, and AB Café. It's 3 amazing clients, or Gast and Stora Bageriet is actually the same, but still. But we don't have any opening hours here.
Okay.
And that is, I think, kind of the one of the pillars or foundation in Standout Coffee is that we should never have opening hours, because the moment you promise someone to be open, that could be such a time-consuming thing.
It is more responsibility.
Yes, and like someone knocking on the door and you're not there by some reason.
Yeah.
That is tough, and I that's the beauty with e-commerce, I think, to wake up and see like, oh, we got these sales during the night, and you can see people from all around the world. But the goal and the dream is always, of course, to maybe open your own shops or something like that.
The idea of having a coffee place, it's really like appealing to me, and that's something that everyone was telling me at the beginning. It's like, oh, you shouldn't like have your coffee brand, you should have your coffee like place. And I was like, yeah, but that means I have to stay here, and I like to travel. I want to discover other places. I want to like try coffee shops in different parts of the world, or I want to go to like origin countries to like see the coffee farms and everything. So I feel like this is the way it makes more sense, and maybe eventually one day I will do that when I want to settle down somewhere. But I think right now I like to do coffee events, which is something that I'm starting to do right now, because I feel like that's one day, one time, and that's it.
Yeah, and it's also a bit dangerous when you're building, because you're building a brand with your name, and of course, if you had a physical store, I think people really want to meet you.
They expect me to be there,
And for us, we are now 4 persons here, but of course me and Alex is the founders, but we try to build Standout not around me and Alex, because I remember back at Drop Coffee the first or the second year, I was in the bar every day, and then when we started roasting coffee, I remember like coming to the bar, and then a barista told me like, there were 2 people opening the door and said, "Is Oscar here?" And we were like, "No, but we're here." And then it just kind of closed the door again.
I've done that before. Like even with baristas that were not even the owners, but like baristas that were kind of like, they made the place their own because they worked there every day. And then at some point they changed. I would change coffee places for the barista because it makes a big difference.
It's a super nice thing if you want to drive traffic and get more sales and have this like super nice interaction with people and the barista and stuff. But it's very, very dangerous.
Yeah, it is.
Because you see it so many times like, but they are connected to us and stuff like that. So I don't know what's the correct move, but I think I'm happy that we are where we are at the moment. And if we ever gonna start a coffee bar, it's gonna be like Standout Coffee and just about coffee and the place and the ambience and everything like that. So it's
I feel like that's why online makes more sense if you more or less build it around you as a person, because you can be available online more or less from anywhere in the world. But if you're in a specific place, I know that I would have that problem where people would go to the cafe expecting me to be there, and I would probably not be there like all the time.
So if after this should I download TikTok?
You should. You should definitely do that, because I feel like too many brands are missing out on like the audience that they can get to without having to pay for advertising. Because TikTok is like a very big app for organic content, and if you're already like making reels or YouTube videos, like you can just reuse that content for TikTok. Or even find the way of like how to communicate with your followers there, and you could reach way more people. So
should we do the first thing, the recording, or like?
What do you mean?
Hello.
I think so, yeah, because I think one of the things on TikTok is that they like to see like the behind of scenes of things.
Yeah.
Like I filmed a video last week that's like, how is coffee roasted? Because people are like, I don't know how a coffee roasting machine looked like. I don't know how this works. Can you show us? And since like I'm always like filming content, but everything that I do is like I filmed a video on that, and people just were like, wow, I didn't know that this worked like this.
It's because that is exactly the thing, I think, and we talked about it, that we are like pushing, we have farmers, producers, competition style coffees, and like pushing like to be quite extreme. But then we just take a step back and like, do anyone even know how to make a proper espresso?
No. Some people have never seen green coffee, and when I've shown it and people are like, oh, coffee is green, or coffee comes from a fruit, and they're like, yeah, it comes from a fruit, and they're like,
so we talked about it like last week, and like we really need to take a step back sometimes and talk to not only like the core super nerds or whatever we want to call us, but sometimes throw in like the basics. Because there was a barista from Stora Bageriet that said, oh, I've been watching all episodes now on your podcast and I love it, but can you please tone it down a bit? It's too advanced. Like when we are talking with like, oh, the Gießen or the airflow in the luring or whatever, like the processes, for us it's very natural. But for most of people out there, it's like as we were in the beginning, when you were like, I got into specialty coffee and that was kind of my life passion. I think a lot of people are on that stage.
Exactly.
Like oh wow, so coffee could be like not super burnt or super Italian or whatever, and to also speak to them. But it's hard because like the train is just going and you need to just...
it's hard because you're already in this point where like you're interested in maybe different things, but something that I always use for some of my videos, because even I forget that, and I'm not that advanced, but I see that sometimes I say things and people are like, oh, I don't understand that. And I'm like, oh yeah, because like you're talking to maybe more advanced people. You have to think about like, what content would I make for my 20-year-old self or 25-year-old self to get them into coffee? And that's a good way to kind of like put yourself in that position back again. And that's something why, for example, this year I want to go to I'm going to go to Costa Rica in October to one of my coffee farms. And I want to like film videos with them because that makes the connection kind of like closer, which I know it's something not everyone can do to like be visiting original like all the time. But I feel like that type of content kind of like bridges everything together so that it's not like, oh, this random family somewhere there is like picking up my coffee and sending it here, you know? Are we going to make the first TikTok?
I don't know. No. I think I need to get it. Yeah, we should. But I need to get done with this.
Because I feel like for like in the coffee industry, there's like a lot of coffee people like James Hoffman and others that do like TikTok and whatever, but no coffee brands. And I feel like there's like such a big opportunity there. And I tell this to coffee brands all the time, but no one listens to me. They're all like, yeah, we'll do it eventually, but no one actually ends up doing.
Now we're in.
See, for example, these kind of videos, like if you want a little advice, like these kind of videos, like they're really nice, they're really aesthetic, they work really well on Instagram, but on TikTok people want to have you like explaining things and even like have like a person that's kind of like the image of the brand. Like you don't have to be like one person, it could be like 3 people or whatever. But if you're like, for example, like standing in front of the lowering being like, we're going to roast the batch of coffee from like Nestor Lasso or something like that, and just explaining the whole process, like that's going to make the video go 10 times better than just like showing the process without explaining anything.
You talked about you speaking Spanish.
Yeah.
And talking about maybe going into English.
Yes.
So maybe that's the challenge.
For me, that is the
challenge. Because we're
challenge.
growing from zero.
Yeah.
And would you then start, but you have like such a leap in followers. You're like, everyone follow my new English channel.
Yeah.
But would you be able to manage it?
What do you mean, like time-wise?
Yeah, if you go to like this nice coffee bar and you do what you do in Spanish, would you be able to do exactly the same thing in English? Or would it be like...
The thing is, like, I've already tried that with like my normal account, when it was like more normal like lifestyle content. I tried to film kind of like the same videos in both languages and just post them in like different accounts. But it was exhausting is not the word. It's more of like, why do I have to explain the same thing in 2 different languages? So it is kind of hard. I'm even thinking of like maybe subtitling my videos, because there's this one girl I follow on Instagram that's called Nadia Coffee. She's in Seoul in Korea, and she makes most of her videos in English, but then she subtitles them in Korean as well. And so I think that really works well for her. So maybe that's something that I could do, because it would make it more of like, well, people in English can just like read my subtitles. But I don't know if people like that. Something I have to try.
Because that's we have the site in English only. Now Rue started working here, and she's from South Korea, so she actually started translating it in South Korean to try that out, and it's super exciting. But oh man, it's time consuming to have 2 languages. Like because when you do something online, it usually comes from what we talked about, like your passion or your like what's actually happening now. Like, oh my God, you came in, let's do a blog post or whatever.
Yeah.
And then to be like, okay, and all I just done, we need to rewrite in Spanish or Italian or South Korean. And it kind of kills the vibe a little bit.
It kills the same energy, because you're going to go do the same thing with like a little bit less motivation, because even though you really want to do it, it's kind of like, but I've already done it. So it's kind of like, I have to do this again.
So we'll see. And okay, I'll give it a try.
Okay.
And you need to guide me. So I'll send you some DMs on how to do that.
This is like literally like what I do for work, like helping brands kind of like go social media and kind of like find the story that they want to tell, and in a way that it works. So like ask me whatever you want.
But don't send me too big of an invoice afterwards.
No worries. No, because when it's brands of like, especially when it's specialty coffee and things like that, it's just like I love it so much to kind of like like bring specialty coffee to more people. I just like do it so happily.
Cool. So I think we're gonna kind of wrap this up, because even though it's early morning, you are not in a rush.
I'm not in a rush. My friend is like already stressing, and like I'm kind of like keeping it chill and just pretending nothing is happening today.
Is it the first time for you on Taylor Swift?
Yeah, and I've been listening to her for like 17 years.
Are you gonna
I'm
start
gonna cry.
crying? You're gonna cry.
Like I thought, like, well, I've never cried seeing a celebrity, because I usually see people as like normal people. But when I you know that she made a movie about the concerts in the States. I put the movie on, like the first 3 seconds I started crying for like no reason. I was like, why am I crying? She's not even on stage yet. So I think today's gonna be bigger.
And how long is the concert?
3.5 hours.
3.5 hours.
And then Power More is like as at the beginning. Thank you.
Tack.
Okay.
Nice. Tack. 3.5. Okay.
Yeah, so that's why like we're already like planning to like eat a lot, drink a lot of water beforehand, and then just like nothing else, because like I don't even want to go to the bathroom. I don't want to miss anything, you know.
And the concert starts at
I think 6:30 start, like the whole thing starts, and then Paramore's like 40 minutes long, and then the official concert starts. So it's gonna finish like at 12 or something like that.
You will have an amazing time.
I know.
So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
Super fun, and I'm nervous about the TikTok thing. I've done it once, but I'm gonna give it a try.
I'm so excited to see the first TikToks.
Oh my god. Veronica, du får bli TikTok-ansvarig. Är det lugnt eller? Jag vet inte. Vi ska se. Det här var jättegott. So this is the RGB.
It's really good.
As espresso, I think this is amazing.
I really like
it. Yeah, it's such a unique flavor. We sent it to a competition, a competitor now. So
how does that usually work with competition coffee? Because that's something I'd never like understood. Like, do you send it to people that you know are competing in like?
I think we work with specialty coffee, or we work with coffee, and then the specialty coffee came up as a name, and that's good. When it comes to what we call competition-style coffees, I know a lot of people now starting to talk about it, and I think it's just a good way of categorizing the top-tier stuff.
Okay.
And if you Standout Coffee is about finding competition-style coffees, so it's good for us just to talk about them. Like the competition stuff is usually ending up in the box. That's kind of the...
Okay.
But anything could be a competition coffee, of course. We don't talk about scores, like everything above 90 or anything like that. It's only about the quality and the taste. And it's easier for us to communicate it, and also for baristas competing on our coffees, it's like a guidance.
Yeah.
Like these kind of coffees from Nestor Lasso, Jonathan Gasca, or Finca Debra, or whoever, they are like top performing in the world, and it's a good start. yeah, there's no like real technical term to it, but it's just a super nice communicating thing, I think, because it's easy for us to have like, this is the competition style coffees and these are the specialty coffees or something like that. But yeah, we had a lecture a few days ago, and a friend of mine, Lakis, who came 9th in the world now, he talked about like, yeah, is specialty coffee dying? Is it just like, why can't it just be coffee? And I think it really has something, because people will be like, oh, is that only specialty coffee? I thought it was competition coffee. Like, it now could happen, and like, in the end, it's just super good coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
And coffee should be nice. So yeah, it's but usually the stuff that we call competition is stuff that ends up in the box, and also stuff that you not roasted by us, but could be, of course, ends up far in competitions. And we got a message now from, I think it was Jonathan Gaska, who also works closely with Nestor Lasso, and I think they had so many top 6 positions now in the worlds. So it's working out, I think.
Nice.
So it's cool. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And enjoy the concert tonight.
I will. I will definitely.
Yeah, and cry a lot, because it's nice to cry.
Yeah.
Thank you.